welcome back to the channel that knows nothing. I'm Jam and let's get to it. Today we are reading The Wild Swans. Once there lived a king who had 11 sons and a young daughter named Alyssa. The family was very happy together until their mother, the queen, died. The king married again, but his new queen was not kind or loving to his children. It was not long before the queen sent Alyssa away to live with an old couple in the forest. "Fly out into the world and get your own living," the wicked queen said to Alyssa's brothers. She cast an evil spell which turned the princes into swans. With a strange cry, they flew out of the palace windows and far away. The years passed and Alyssa missed her brothers. One day, as she wandered alone in the forest, she met an old woman. "Have you ever seen 11 princes riding through these woods?" she asked. "No," replied the old woman, "but I have seen 11 swans floating on the river." Alyssa ran to the river and waited. When the sun began to set, 11 swans flew down and settled on the riverbank. As soon as the sun disappeared, the swans' feathers fell off, and 11 handsome princes stood there. Alyssa knew that they were her brothers, and ran to them with a happy cry. How glad they were to be together once more. But sadly the next morning the princes were turned into swans again, for only at night could they be human. And they told Alyssa that the time of the year had come, with its long summer days, when they must fly back to their home beyond the sea. "We cannot leave you here," they said. So that night they wove a net of willow bark and reed and carried Alyssa in over the sea. By sundown the second day they landed on the shore of a beautiful country. There the princess found Alyssa a dry cave to sleep in. She dreamed of the old woman who had told her of the 11 swans. In her dream, Alyssa asked, "How can I help release my brothers from the evil spell?" The old woman said, "Take courage, Alyssa. You must pick stinging nettles and break them up with your feet. Weave the nettles into 11 coats. When you put the coats on your brothers, they will be freed from the evil spell. But the hardest part of this, you must work without speaking. For if you speak before the coats are finished, your brothers will not live to become human again." Alyssa woke immediately to find the nettle in her hand. She ran out to the fields to gather more nettles, which stung her delicate fingers, but she would not stop until she had gathered enough to make the coats. Alyssa worked by the light of the moon all that night, stamping the nettles with her feet and then weaving the thread. The next day, after her brothers had turned back into swans and flown off, Alyssa made 2 coats. All would have been well, but a party of huntsmen found her. One of the huntsmen was the king of that country. He was enchanted by Alyssa's beauty and asked her many questions about herself, but Alyssa would not speak. "You cannot stay here alone in the forest," the king told Alyssa. "Come with me. I will bring you to my castle where you will be safe." Alyssa wept as she rode through the mountains on the king's horse, far away from her brothers. Each day ladies in waitings dressed Alyssa in beautiful gowns and wove pearls in her hair, but Alyssa could only think of her poor brothers, waiting for her to help them. The 11 swans swam sadly on the river near the castle. Alyssa waved to them each day at sunset as they flew off to the forest for the night. Her brothers wanted to visit her, but they were afraid that the king would be angry with Alyssa for welcoming 11 visiting princes. The king, knowing Alyssa was unhappy, sent for the nettle thread and the coats that she had made. The sight of them made Alyssa feel better. She fell to work at once, and soon she had knitted 10 coats. But then Alyssa had no thread left. She bravely crept out of the castle at midnight to find more nettles. A wicked prince had secretly watched Alyssa leave the castle. He told the king and his court that Alyssa was a witch. Why else would she leave the castle at midnight to go pick stinging nettles? He asked. The king was troubled by what he had heard. "Speak if you are innocent," he commanded Alyssa. But she dared not reply, for the last coat was not finished yet. As the court argued about what to do with Alyssa, she slipped away and ran to her room. Alyssa worked quickly to finish the last coat before the 11 swans had to fly to the forest for the night. The sun was low in the sky as she finished the last coat. She gathered up all 11 coats and ran towards the river, hoping that no one would see her. But no sooner than she was outside, a crowd spotted her and began to chase her. Alyssa arrived at the river just as the swans were lifting their wings to fly away to the forest. "Wait, brothers!" she called. The swans settled in a ring around their sister to protect her. Alyssa tossed the coats over the swan's head, and immediately they were transformed into 11 splendid princes. Alyssa then turned to the king. "Now I may speak," she said, "for my brothers are saved." And she told the king the story of the spell her brothers had been under, and all she had done to release them from it. As Alyssa spoke, the garden burst into bloom, and the scent of roses filled the air. Now everyone knew that Alyssa was not a witch. At the king's elbow swayed a white rose. He picked it and put it into Alyssa's hands. "You are as pure as this rose," he said, "and I want you to be my bride." Alyssa could smile at last, and no one was ever as happy as Alyssa and the king on their wedding day. The end. This is one of my favorite sort of older fairy tales, although it's slightly different. The one I know is the 6 swans, not the wild swans. This is slightly different to the one that I originally knew. It's fairly similar, except the horrible mother isn't like immediately like terrible to them. In fact, she doesn't even know they exist. So what happens in the original that I know of, that is in this one by the Grimm brothers, it is the 6 swans. The 6, wait, if it stops focusing on my face, please. The 6 swans. In this retelling, it is the king gets lost in the forest one day, and a witch makes him marry her daughter to get out. Very weird, I know, but you know, just stick with it for a second. The king then hides his daughter in a tower so that the witch won't become jealous, but then follows the king to the tower one day and curses not only the daughter but the 6 sons that are also there. But the daughter gets away in time, and again, like, yes, it is an old lady in the forest that tells her, sew stuff out of, like, you know, the nettles. I think it's something different in this, but yes, make these, like, you know, grass sort of suits for your brothers and they will be, you know, human again. And so it's very similar. Like, yes, she meets her brothers, but the brothers don't really stay with her that much. They're just like, we're swans, lol. And so she stays in the forest for ages trying to sew these, you know, clothes for them. And yes, then a prince finds her and brings her back to his castle, and then marries her straight up. Doesn't even ask until she, like, doesn't, it's a little bit better in, like, this one's a bit better in the sense that she can speak and they get married, but she can't speak and they get married, or he forces her into marriage. Anyway, so then the witch ends up coming back because she finds out that Alyssa has gone and married a prince in another country and wants to stop that from happening, and so says all these terrible things about her. But because she is queen, she can't really be killed, but they also want to do something to her. But then she finally half finishes the coats, and so one of her brothers does live with a swan arm, but you know, kind of a bit like metaphorical there. They got done, but also she had to speak to defend herself. Anyway, I really love the story. I hope you enjoyed it too. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you today. Please like, subscribe, because that is always nice, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.